Tonight, the U.S. strike at Iran's nuclear facilities. What we know, how successful were the strikes? President Trump's message a short time ago. Tonight, the Pentagon now providing new details how they pulled this off in complete secrecy. We have new satellite images tonight, what they reveal, and now the U.S. on heightened alert as Iran warns of retaliation. Tonight here, Operation Midnight Hammer, the first images showing the precision U.S. strike targeting 3 Iranian nuclear sites, including Fordo, deep beneath the mountain. Explosions seen in the distance. The U.S. launching the largest strike by a dozen B-2 bombers, dropping never-before-used 30,000-pound bombs. Satellite images showing all 3 sites suffering major damage. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth before the cameras today, revealing how they pulled off this high-stakes mission. Decoy planes flying toward Guam, the actual bombers flying in the other direction undetected. And what we're now learning about when President Trump gave the order. Tonight, the images that suggest Iran might have moved some nuclear material in the days before the attacks. Ian Pannell standing by with new reporting and details from inside the operation. Tonight, assessing the damage done to Iran. In his address to the nation, the president last night, speaking of the strike, saying Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been totally obliterated. Tonight, Vice President J.D. Vance not going that far, and this evening the concern for 40,000 American troops across the region amid these threats of retaliation. Mary Bruce and Martha Raddatz and what their sources are telling them tonight. The threat here at home, U.S. law enforcement on high alert across the country. And the new warning from the Department of Homeland Security. Pierre Thomas standing by on that. Also, the other news this Sunday night, the deadly boating accident capsizing in gusting winds. At least 6 people killed, 2 missing. The urgent search at this hour. And the deadly storms and life-threatening heat in the east. 3 people, including twin sisters, killed outside Syracuse, New York, in Oneida County. Multiple reports of trees onto homes. 150 million Americans on alert for extreme heat now from Kansas all the way to the Northeast. It'll feel like 110 in Washington, D.C., 105 in Philadelphia and New York City. World News Tonight begins now.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening. We are here on this Sunday night after the major U.S. strikes on Iran, now directly involved in this conflict. And we are learning much more tonight, some 24 hours after U.S. bombs and missiles struck Iran's 3 key nuclear facilities. A fleet of B-2 bombers, some of them decoys, some taking off from the U.S. for Guam, others then taking off in the other direction for Iran, going undetected. The B-2 bombers dropping those 30,000-pound bombs for the first time as part of this massive strike on Iran. President Trump overnight addressing the nation, calling the operation a spectacular military success. Critics on the Hill tonight warning of what could come next, with Iran now saying it will retaliate. The first video tonight coming in from inside Iran, an explosion and then a fireball near Iran's Isfahan nuclear facility. Tonight, military officials now describing the high-stakes mission involving 125 aircraft, including 1 group of B-2 bombers taking off from Missouri, heading to the west as a decoy, and then that second group flying in secret, heading to Iran. Those B-2 bombers dropping 14 massive ordnance penetrator bombs capable of penetrating deep underground on Iran's Fordo and Natanz nuclear sites. This is an animation, of course, and it is still unclear tonight how far those bombs penetrated beneath the earth. In addition, Tomahawk missiles from a U.S. submarine striking the 3rd site, Isfahan. Tonight, satellite images right here of that site 1 week ago. And this satellite image of the Isfahan nuclear site tonight. You can see the evidence of the damage. And this evening here, new questions about Fordo. Satellite images from the days before the strikes show a line of trucks on a service road there. Was Iran moving nuclear material in the days before the attack? Tonight, President Trump saying Iran must now make peace, warning of additional targets if they do not. We begin tonight here with our chief foreign correspondent, Ian Pannell, in Tel Aviv tonight with new reporting, new details inside those 25 minutes over Iran.
Tonight, the first video emerging from the US's audacious attack on 3 Iranian nuclear sites. A fireball lighting the night sky. Explosions heard in the distance at Iran's Isfahan nuclear facility, part of the barrage that included the biggest strike by B-2 stealth bombers in US history. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth before the cameras today.
This is a plan that took months and weeks of positioning and preparation so that we could be ready when the President of the United States called.
President Trump giving the final order for Operation Midnight Hammer last night, a highly classified, top-secret mission that only a handful of U.S. officials knew about and one that was full of deception.
It took a great deal of precision, it involved misdirection, and the highest of operational security.
About a dozen B-2 bombers taking off from Missouri early Saturday morning, with a decoy group of about half of them heading west towards Guam with trackable movements. And while the world was looking the other way, a short time later, 7 more B-2s taking off, but this time heading in the opposite direction, to the east, directly towards Iran, with no transponders and minimal communications. Those bombers completing multiple mid-air refuelings throughout the 18 hours it took to fly to Iran, the longest since right after the 9/11 attacks, and once over land, linking up with additional support aircraft. The Pentagon saying the 25-minute mission inside Iranian airspace began at 6:40 p.m. Eastern. A first wave of U.S. fighter jets sweeping in front of the B-2s to protect them from possible enemy missiles and warplanes, all part of the deception. Then a lead B-2 bomber dropping the first 2 30,000-pound bunker-busting bombs called the Massive Ordnance Penetrator, or MOPS, on Iran's Fordo nuclear site, buried deep under a mountain.
The remaining bombers then hit their targets as well, with a total of 14 MOPS dropped against 2 nuclear target areas.
Those massive bombs hitting facilities at both Fordo and Natanz, marking the first time they've been used on the battlefield.
We are currently unaware of any shots fired at the U.S. strike package on the way in. Iran's fighters did not fly, and it appears that Iran's surface-to-air missile systems did not see us.
Right after those bunker-busting bombs struck, U.S. missiles hitting a third target.
A U.S. submarine in the Central Command Area of Responsibility launched more than 24 Tomahawk land attack cruise missiles against key surface infrastructure targets at Esfahan.
In total, 125 aircraft and 75 precision-guided weapons were used. New before and after satellite images showing the destruction left behind at these sites. What appears to be extensive damage at buildings in Isfahan and in Natanz, an 18-foot wide hole directly over part of the underground military complex there.
Final battle damage will take some time, but initial battle damage assessments indicate that all 3 sites sustained extremely severe damage and destruction.
But questions tonight about the impact of those U.S. attacks and whether Iran preempted them. Satellite images from the days before the strike showing unusual activity at the Fordo nuclear site. A line of trucks seen on a service road. It's unclear if Iran anticipated the bombings and moved nuclear material beforehand. Just hours after the U.S. strike, Iran retaliating, firing around 20 ballistic missiles at Israel. Massive destruction here in northern Tel Aviv. You can see the clear-up operation underway, but just look at the destruction to what was a residential apartment block. Again, Iran responding after those American attacks. Iran calling the attack outrageous and a breach of international law, threatening a heavy response and warning U.S. bases in the region are vulnerable to attack. President Trump addressing the nation after the attack, saying Iran must now make peace, warning Iran and its proxies against any retaliation against the U.S., saying the U.S. will hit more targets with precision, speed and skill.
Tonight I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success.
And late today, those B-2 bombers that hit Iran safely returning home to Missouri. Our affiliate, KMBC, was there some 36 hours after they began their mission.
A great sight to see those B-2 bombers back on the ground here in the U.S. Let's get right back to Ian Pannell live tonight in Tel Aviv. Ian, you and I were on the air last night here after these attacks were revealed. As we know, there are tens of thousands of U.S. troops stationed across the region. Obviously, major concern with Iran saying it will retaliate. The safety of U.S. troops throughout the Middle East of utmost importance tonight.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, the president just posting about the B-2's landing, saying they've landed safely in Missouri. Thank you for a job well done. But yes, tens of thousands, around 40,000 troops still in the region. Extra security precautions have now been put in place. Iran, though, saying later today that it was the US that decided to destroy diplomacy with last night's strike, and that the Iranian military will, quote, decide the timing, nature and scale of its response. David.
Ian Pannell, who was on the air with us deep into the night last night, back here again tonight, and we appreciate it. Thank you, Ian. President Trump tonight calling the operation a spectacular success overnight in his address to the nation, saying the strikes totally obliterated those 3 nuclear enrichment sites. Tonight, Vice President Vance not going that far. The Pentagon also cautioning it is still too early to tell the extent of the damage. Here's ABC's chief White House correspondent, Mary Bruce, tonight.
Tonight, 24 hours after President Trump launched that massive attack on Iran, questions remain over how much damage was done to Iran's nuclear program. The president last night claiming it was destroyed.
Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
Today, Vice President J.D. Vance not going that far, saying instead that Iran's nuclear program was substantially set back.
We set the Iranian nuclear program back substantially last night. Whether it's years or beyond that, we know it's going to be a very long time before Iran can even build a nuclear weapon if they want to. We feel very confident that the Fordo nuclear site was substantially set back, and that was our goal.
Tonight, we're learning more about what led up to the president's decision to strike Iran. A senior administration official telling ABC News he was hoping for a diplomatic solution up to the final days. Trump's Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff leading that effort. The president himself talking with Turkish President Erdogan, hoping Turkey could help facilitate talks with Iran. But it was not to be. Sources tell us Iran's supreme leader, fearing for his life, went into hiding and was unable to approve the meeting. As diplomacy faltered, the Pentagon working on a parallel track to prepare the attack. The president giving the final order yesterday, just minutes before. Today, ABC's John Carl asking the vice president.
The big question, is the United States now at war with Iran?
No, we're not at war with Iran, John. We're at war with Iran's nuclear program.
The vice president insisting the U.S. is not seeking regime change, noting the U.S. did not hit any civilian or military targets.
If you look at what we did, it was very precise, very narrowly tailored to our objective. And if the Iranians decide to expand this, then that's ultimately their decision, and the president of the United States will respond in kind.
Echoing the president's warning from last night that the U.S. has other targets in its sights if Iran chooses to retaliate.
If peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill.
So let's get right back to Mary Bruce, live again tonight at the White House. And Mary, Vice President Vance, as you reported there, saying the U.S. also is not seeking regime change in Iran. He said that today. But we also know that just a short time ago, a somewhat different message from President Trump when it comes to the leaders of Iran.
Yeah, David, the president just now suggesting that maybe there should be a change in leadership, saying, quote, if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? This as the president continues to push for those talks and warn against retaliation. David.
Mary Bruce back with us tonight. Mary, thank you. And tonight, as we reported here off the top, the concern for U.S. troops across the Middle East now, more than 40,000 deployed across the region. ABC's Martha Raddatz with us. And Martha, you have new reporting here. What's being done to protect U.S. troops?
Well, David, there's no question that these 40,000 troops could be targeted by Iran, with American forces spread from Iraq, Bahrain, Qatar, and Syria. The U.S. military is doing whatever they can to protect the forces. Patriot missile batteries are in place that can bring down Iranian rockets or missiles, as well as systems called CRAMs, large radar-guided high-speed guns that can track and shoot down incoming rocket and mortar fires. Additional fighter jets have also been sent F-22s, F-35s, and the U.S. has Carl Vinson Carrier Battle Group is currently in the Arabian Sea. But remember, in 2020, after the U.S. killed the head of Iran's Revolutionary Guard, Qasem Soleimani, I was there in Iran when they launched a dozen missiles at the Al-Assad air base in Iraq, leaving about 100 American troops injured with mild traumatic brain injury. So the Pentagon remains on edge tonight and on very high alert. David?
In addition to all the families back here at home worried about loved ones, Martha Raddatz with us. Martha, thank you. Now to those 30,000-pound bombs used in conflict for the first time. Let's bring in ABC's military analyst, former Marine Colonel Steve Ganyard, back with us. And Steve, this is the first time that the U.S. has used these bunker buster bombs in combat. I'm curious, what do we know about the damage so far? I know it's still early, but what do we know about the damage they caused?
The irony, David, is we probably won't know, because remember that these halls that they were attacking, these enrichment halls, are 200 to 300 feet below ground. Now, we've seen some satellite imagery that shows what looked to be puncture marks. We know that the president was happy with it. So if the Iranians don't hit back at the U.S. or its allies, this could be the end of the U.S. involvement. If they do come back, as Martha noted, at U.S. troops in the region or allies in the region, this could be the beginning of something more prolonged and bigger for the U.S.
Colonel Steve Ganyard back with us here. Steve, thank you. We're going to turn to the potential threat here at home as well. There's the new warning tonight from the Department of Homeland Security. Our Chief Justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas, back with us tonight. Pierre, how are U.S. officials cautioning local officials to prepare here, and what have you learned?
David, today FBI and Homeland Security officials hosted conference calls with the nation's governors and top law enforcement officials to discuss how the U.S. missile strikes in Iran impact an already dangerous threat environment here at home. You can see stepped up security today in Los Angeles, New York, and here in the nation's capital. And today, Homeland Security issuing a bulletin calling on the public to report anything suspicious, with Secretary Noem stating that what's happening in Iran brings the potential for increased threats to the homeland, including in the form of possible cyber attacks and acts of violence. David?
All right. Our coverage of the U.S. strikes on Iran for this evening, Pierre, thank you. In the meantime, the other major news this Sunday night, deadly storms and more than 150 million Americans now on alert from Nebraska to the Northeast for life-threatening heat. And ahead of the extreme heat, heavy rain, storms triggering dangerous flash flooding. Images from central New York, 3 people killed, including 2 children in the town of Clark Mills, outside Syracuse in Oneida County. Here's Morgan Norwood tonight.
Tonight, at least 3 dead outside Syracuse, New York, after powerful storms flooded roads and snapped trees and power poles. In the hamlet of Clark Mills in Oneida County, trees on homes. Authorities here say 3 people were killed, including 6-year-old twin girls. New York's governor declaring a state of emergency for the storms. And for the first major heat wave of the summer that's starting to strangle the Northeast, life-threatening, record-breaking temperatures on tap from New York to Philly to Boston. And after those deadly twisters tore through parts of North Dakota, killing at least 3 people, some of the same areas are now under a new tornado watch, the threat of more heat-fueled storms growing tonight.
And David, heat kills thousands each year, more than any other type of extreme weather. And here in New York City, air quality alerts up for tomorrow, with officials warning people, especially those sensitive groups, to take this heat seriously. David?
No question about that. Morgan, thank you. Let's get right to meteorologist Brittany Bell from our New York station, WABC. Brittany?
David, this first major heat wave of the season could be life-threatening. So let's get right to the alerts stretching from Louisiana all the way to Maine, including an excessive heat warning that includes major cities like Washington, D.C. and Boston. High temperatures in D.C. could get at or above 100 degrees on Monday and Tuesday, and areas like New York and other locations could even challenge record high temperatures. The humidity even making it feel as high as 110 degrees. Now, looking ahead to the overnight lows, no relief there, only dropping down into the upper 70s and the lower 80s. David?
All right, Brittany, great to have you on a Sunday night. Thank you. When we come back, remembering a beloved actress known for her roles in Sanford and Son and The Waltons. And the boating tragedy tonight amid gusting winds, at least 6 people dead when their boat capsized, and the urgent search at this hour for people still missing. We'll be right back. Tonight here, the tragedy on Lake Tahoe in California. Authorities say at least 6 people were killed. 2 others are still missing at this hour after their boat capsized during a vicious storm. Winds gusting up to 35 miles an hour, waves up to 8 feet high. 2 others rescued. They're being treated tonight for hypothermia and other injuries. When we come back here on a Sunday night, we remember a beloved actress from Sanford and Son and The Waltons. Tonight, we learned that actress Lynn Hamilton has died of natural causes. Best known for her roles in Sanford and Son, The Waltons, and Roots: The Next Generation, Lynn Hamilton was 95 years old. When we come back here tonight, the B-2 bombers back in Missouri at this hour, and what President Trump just said about the pilots. Before we go tonight, President Trump this evening praising the B-2 pilots who have just returned from their mission over Iran. Late today, the president posting, "The great B-2 pilots have just landed safely in Missouri. Thank you for a job well done." President Trump now warning Iran must now make peace. Of course, the world awaiting Iran's response. Iran saying it will respond. Thank you for watching. Game 7 of the NBA Finals moments from now. I'll see you tomorrow night. Good night.
Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.